tastes like beer.
Tastes like beer. That's the big reveal here. Tastes like beer. Wow. How much am I paying you?
I think I wandered down the rabbit hole far enough that I broke Russ's brain for this episode.
How much am I paying you? Oh, that's right, nothing.
So far, I think it's mostly about that much.
Coming to you sort of live from the Beer to Whiskey Studios on the floor of the tap room at Greenville Beer Exchange, or GBX as we like to call it. I'm Russ Heaps, and welcome to this episode of Big John in 5, where I get my good buddy here, Big John Richards, the beer whisperer around these parts, and he picks a beer from one of GBX's 20 or so taps and hundreds of bottles of cans they've got up in their retail store, and we sniff them, we sip them, we bits about them. John tells us a little bit about the brewery that brews them, and sometimes we get a little brewing history. And after that long-winded introduction, John, what are we doing?
We're drinking an Italian Pilsner called Tipopils, and I just more and more have found myself drinking the lighter side of things, defaulting into Pilsners and dark lagers, and dark lagers probably are my current favorite style. Just getting to explore them makes them probably my current favorite style. But the current, or maybe most recent, darling on the light beer side for American craft brewers is Italian Pilsner. Tons of people are brewing these Italian Pilsners. Some of them are starting to call them West Coast Pilsners, which I think is sort of silly.
Well, Italy has a West Coast.
It does, but that's not the one they're referencing. They're trying to make it sound like it's a West Coast, like referencing West Coast IPA, because these are pretty heavily hopped. Usually big, spicy hops, earthy, spicy hops. Instead of being the grapefruity, piney side of things, they're the more like herbal, leafy, earthy side of hoppiness, but they're usually pretty bitter. So we're towing the line into IPA territory, but we're doing it with a lager. And for a while there were India Pale lagers, and now those have pretty much gone away, and everybody's brewing cold IPA, which is brewing with an ale yeast, but at cold temperatures to slow it down. So a whole movement, which I think is awesome, and I applaud this movement back to light, easygoing beers, reasonable alcohol strengths, and beer-flavored beers. But they're all hearkening back basically to this one beer. This is like almost has created a style the same way Fuller's ESB created a style with American brewers who started brewing a style of beer that doesn't exist or didn't exist in England. Fuller's just decided to call their beer extra special bitter, and the American brewers all latched onto that particular beer so much that we now have a style of beer called ESB. That's kind of what's happened here. Everything really points back to this Tipopils, but we're experimenting with throwing more spicy, bittering hops into Pilsners and getting these a little bit more aggressive flavors out of them. So I'm going to pop this one because I thought it would be fun to go all the way back to the beginning and taste what Italian Pilsner, original Italian Pilsner.
I'm all for it.
Yeah.
Shall I hum the Godfather theme while you're opening this?
If you can, I definitely think you should.
No, because when I hum, I want to dance.
Well, then I think you shouldn't.
None of that's going to play well in Peoria, as they say.
All right. So while I'm pouring, I will call out Buddy.
Got to bring Buddy into the mix.
While I'm pouring, I will say that very often the best way to pour your beer is just like this. Pour it straight into the bottom of the glass, pour it nice and slow, let it build up some head, and you will help release carbonation out into your beer. That helps you smell it, helps you taste it, helps you not get so full because there's too much carbonation in your beer. I won't get into a whole deal about that, but pour your beer with some head on it because it needs it. one day we'll do that whole thing, but
My
this
God.
is not that episode.
Right.
We're going to taste this beer because we talked about it too much.
Agreed. Text Miss Lily.
Kaboom. Yeah, there's almost some pininess there, but it's really more like a woody, like a cedary kind of a woodiness, I think.
Cedar's what I would have said if I'd thought of it.
Yeah. See, you get a little bit of that sweetness up front, then there's some texture there. The finish is all hops. It's not super bitter.
No.
But you catch that feeling at the end, the sharpness and a little bit of the lingering effects. Because when you start really delving into, tasting panels and the joyless side of drinking beer.
I didn't know there was a joyless side.
Oh, there is.
That doesn't seem right.
One of the things that you get taught is that a bittering hops will continue to develop bitterness on your tongue for upwards of 10 full minutes if you don't take another sip. So the longer you sit with hops that are bitter, the more bitter they taste on your tongue. So the whole point is, as that grows, you take another sip, get back the sweetness to balance it back down. The longer you sit with it, the more of that straight bitter mouthfeel, because it's a taste. Bitterness is something that your tongue does, aside, which is not any of the other things we talk about, but bitter and sweet are the two things that we're going to talk about as what you taste in a beer, but everything else comes through your nose. So, look like you're contemplating.
Well,
something
no,
very
I'm
hard,
just
Russ.
getting. I'm getting I'm getting a little bit of that bitter. A hint of bitterness. Excuse me, but I wouldn't even begin to call it hoppy or bitter.
It certainly doesn't approach IPA levels of bitterness, but for a Pilsner,
Well, that's true too.
it's
a
bitter.
Pilsner.
But I don't even think most people, I think the vast majority of people would recognize a bitterness, but would be hard pressed to find this off-putting in any way.
Right.
It doesn't have, some of our American IPAs get out of hand, and I love bitter beer, and I still will be the first to admit that some of our IPAs get out of hand with it. But the struggle is to create balance. I keep preaching that as a very specific thing, that we have to find a way back to balanced beers in American craft. There's so much smoothie sours. There's so much hazy IPA, milkshake IPA. We've got an imperial stout with 9 different adjuncts in it and 2 different barrels, and then blended with imperial barley wine aged in port barrels. It's just like, okay, I love all that. I do. I really do. But we got to find our way back to good beer-flavored beer to be able to survive.
Give me an amen.
You're
Give me
not going
an
to be able to
amen.
survive on 12 different kinds of port barrels. It's not going to work. It might work for one brewery. It's just not going to work for all of us. This works for all of us. So that's I'm off my soapbox now.
Amen, brother. Amen.
Part of the reason why I've led off by saying I just find myself firmly entrenched in drinking these very light beers right now, because they're just enjoyable.
Yeah. I get that.
I don't have to.
You don't have to think about
I
it.
don't have to think about them. You can. There's plenty to do there, but you can just sit back and drink this, and it's okay. It's good. It tastes like beer.
Tastes like beer. That's the big reveal here. Tastes like beer. Wow. How much am I paying you?
I think I wandered down the rabbit hole far enough that I broke Russ's brain for this episode.
How much am I paying you? Oh, that's right, nothing.
So far, I think it's mostly about that much.
Anything else?
Now let's send these people on our merry way.
Did we ever give the ABV of this?
5.2.
5.2. 5.2.
5.2.
We were so busy talking about other things.
Yes.
So damn lucky. See you next time.